moms have this idea that they have to be perfect at everything, and there's no room or margin for any mistakes or errors, and they expect their kids to behave properly all the time. And so they have this feeling that if they don't meet this criteria of, you know, making homemade meals and keeping a perfectly clean house and having a kid who's involved in activities, if they fall short on any of those, they feel like they're a personal failure, and they feel guilty, and they beat themselves up very hard. And so I'm trying to liberate people to realize this is not good mental health practice for a parent. That in fact, it's very misguided to think that anybody is a perfect human being. That's actually quite twisted thinking if you think about it. We're just humble human beings. So I want to have parents grab the idea that you can be a good enough parent, that you don't need to be perfect in order to have a healthy family life. And the more that you are authentic and model to your child how to bumble along, making mistakes and doing your best, that's a better formula for happiness and raising mentally healthy children. When a parent sees their mistakes as failures, they're evaluating their own personal worth, which means they have this mindset that there's a rating scale, that if I behave a certain way, my worth as a human goes up, and if I make mistakes, those are personal failures and my worth goes down. Well, this is not the truth. The truth is that your value as a human being is given to you the day you were born, and it does not go up or go down ever. That you're already perfectly beautiful just as you are at birth. And so we don't want kids to adopt our stinky thinking, which is that mistakes are personal failures. Because in fact, the best way to improve yourself and get more skills and more mastery and more talents and to tackle life fully is to be great at making mistakes. So when we can separate mistakes as just things to learn from and not personal failures that lower our worth, then we're liberated to get on with doing the things we need to do, because we lose that fear of fumbling, and now we're fully engaged. So we learn that lesson first, and then we pass that gift on to our kids. Children will have tantrums, especially little children. They don't have good problem-solving skills. They don't have good verbal capacities. They haven't learned how to get their way in life yet. So they're to be expected, but there's still a way to parent around them. Once a child is tantruming, you cannot talk to them. Literally, they are so emotional that the prefrontal cortex that does rational thinking is disengaged. They're literally working from their limbic system. So I would just rub their back and say, I see you're upset. When you get yourself calm, come back and talk to me about this. So I say they have their right to have their storm, and you have your right to not be disturbed by it. And I would walk away until the child is calm. Now, your work is not done yet. You need to circle back and find out what made that child so angry, because it was not irrational to their way of thinking. And we need to find out what the original problem was. And I'm telling you, chances are that original problem was some feeling that that child had that they were treated with a sense of misjustice. Of course, this is in the child's eyes. You may not be aware. So for example, if they say, "Can I have a cookie?" And you say, "No, we're about to have supper. We don't have cookies before supper." And then they fall apart. You think, why are they falling apart? They know the rules. But chances are, there's probably been many times where you've given them treats before dinner because you haven't been consistent. So in their mind, it does feel irrational. It does feel like you were just controlling them and ruining their good time. So I think if we can see things more from the child's perspective and try to make rules and limits more understandable to the child, so that they don't just feel like, you know, we're the gatekeeper to their happiness and we do things arbitrarily. That's what really upsets kids. In order to make a good limit or boundary, it needs to be age and development appropriate. So parents do need to do some work. What is an appropriate time for a child to go to bed? What is an appropriate amount to eat? Those sorts of things, you have to look at some of the child guidelines, and you can speak to your doctor and look for resources around that. But you also want to invite your child to participate in helping establish some of the family rules that the child's expected to live within. Now, these don't need to be every rule in your house. I don't involve my kids in the decision making of every question that I have. I don't sit down with my kids and say, Mom and Dad want to buy a new car. You know, do you think that we should lease or rent, or, you know, what should we do for financing? You don't ask a 4-year-old that. That's inappropriate. The things you want to ask them are things that are to their ability and things that are probably causing contentious fights. So in just the incident of the cookie before dinner, it might be saying, what should be our policy about when we have snacks and how much we have snacks and what snacks are allowable? Help us make up those family rules. They're going to be all kinds of interested in that topic because it's their cookies, it's their fruit. They want to have some say in that. And so when you open it to a discussion and then you come up with an agreement and you write it down, then you can stick to that agreement. And you can even talk to the child about what should happen if the agreement gets broken. Because now they're also learning to participate in creating the consequences for when they, you know, overstep a boundary. So I think making it developmentally appropriate, asking for their input, making sure that you're consistent in writing it down so it's concrete, and talking about what happens when you cross the line. That's going to make good limits and boundaries. When a baby comes into the world, they are 100% dependent on their parent, the human species. So other animal species, they can live alone independently right from birth, but not humans. If someone isn't there to care for them, keep them warm, thermoregulate them, bring them nutrition, they will die. So the baby from the get-go needs the parent to care for them. But the entire purpose of parenting is to move that baby from the immature, incapable state to developing all the skills that it needs for autonomy and independence, so that at about age 18, that they are emancipated from the family nest and they join the larger society and they're ready to contribute to the larger society. So you need to think about all the things a child needs to know how to do by the time they leave your house. And if you think of them to cook and how to change the tire on a car and garden and all these things, there's a million tasks. And most parents put off on this. They either think their child's not capable, or it's faster to do it myself, or I want to do it my way. I like my way. And so parents keep all the responsibility themselves and they never hand it over to their children, or the children resist it and the parents don't want the fight. And suddenly you've got a kid about ready to leave home who still won't get themselves up in the morning. This is a child not prepared to be an adult. And so it's very difficult to make up for 17 years of training in 1 year before they leave home. So we have to think about what are all the little micro skills that we need to be teaching our kids, and then handing over that responsibility so that it eventually adds up to a fully fledged, capable person who has all their skills, and they've been working on them for 18 years, not just the last year before they're about to leave home. If your child is being bullied, have some empathy for the bully, in the sense that that child is not a bad child. That's a child who has relationship issues and needs skills, just the same way that the child who's being bullied also needs relationship skills in order for them to not be bullied by other people in life. So we need to show them what healthy relationships look like, both the bullier and the bully. So there's skills training on both sides. For the point of view of the person that's the victim, they need to learn how to be more assertive in how they deal with people and to not shy away from aggressive people. And aggressive people have that modeled, usually a bully has been bullied by a parent or by a teacher, and they're just replicating what they know as a way to get status from their peers or to get their way. So we need to improve how we discipline kids at home, how we discipline kids in the classroom, so that kids don't get the idea that it's okay to push other kids around. So we have to start with the kids, but we have to also start with the larger culture. I think we have to differentiate what we're really talking about when we use that word attachment. it is very important to have a strong bond and an intimate relationship, an intimate, loving relationship with your child. But it also needs to be a respectful relationship. And in a respectful relationship, no person is slave or tyrant to another person. And a child is expected to take on their own roles and responsibility in facing life's challenges. So if they won't go into a classroom without clinging onto your pant leg, this is a child who may very well love their parent, but they have not learned how to be independent away from the parent. So you can love mommy and you can miss her a lot while you're at kindergarten, but she needs to go now. And it's completely fine to say to the teacher, can you help me remove my clinging child from my leg and hand them a Kleenex when they cry, because I need to leave now, and to go. This does not hurt the relationship and it does not sever the primary attachment bond. That's good discipline. So it's when we worry, when we see the tears and the emotionality and we cave to our kids' demands, we keep them crippled because we keep them dependent. So we're not helping them emotionally in the long run. There's probably language that you have in your culture that defines the difference between responsible and positive. And even in Canada, we get confused about the brands or the terms and what do they really mean. But what we have to realize is that in family life, the family is the smallest social institution, and it needs support from the larger institutions. And that can be the school systems, that can be the government. That in a sense, nobody does this alone. And so if we want to bring change to our broader culture and we want to do it one child at a time, there has to be support all along the way that's investing in the citizens of your future culture, that says we want to make sure they get resources for pregnant moms so that they have a healthy pregnancy, so that they get prenatal education, so that kids get good schooling, that parents have access to parent education. Parenting classes should be supported by the government so that parents can access those, to access things online, because a lot of parents who need resources can't even get to the resources. So I think when we decide that it's everyone's best interest to support the entire arc of a child's life, and that's educating educators and educating parents, creating those social structures, then we have a winning formula. Oh, the big message. Well, I hope anyone who has read this book, I hope has had the experience of saying, there should be like this aha moment. We have these epiphanies because we don't know what we don't know. So I guess my biggest message is seek out parent education. You know, we think that just because humans have been doing it for generations and generations that it should somehow be intuitive. But the truth is there's all kinds of things that we've learned from psychology and through research and understanding neural development. There's so much that we can know, and not to be overwhelmed by it. But the truth is, you can improve the quality of one day in your household by learning one little tip or trick, just even how to handle the tantrum or get a shoe on. And why wouldn't you want to have access to that information that makes your life more harmonious? So don't stay in pain and suffer. Take a class, pick up a book, and be excited about the education of a parent, not overwhelmed.